Welcome to Bettering Our Community. My name is Suzanne Bernier Robinson, and I'll be your host today as we learn more about Community Crossroads, a nonprofit organization here in southern New Hampshire that's really making a difference in the lives of many people. Let me introduce our guest, Dennis Powers. He is the Chief Executive Officer.
Correct.
Tina Paquin, the Independent Service Coordinator. And Janelle Hobson, in charge of Marketing and Development. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Let me ask first, how long have you been in the community?
We've actually been in the community for 35 years. We've had a couple of name changes during that 35 years. Originally, we were known as Region 10 Community Support Services. But about 2 years ago, we changed our name to Community Crossroads because we've really broadened our mission and the types of people that we serve. So we felt that that was a little more indicative of our broader community presence.
So what is the mission of the organization?
Well, our mission today is to provide services to anybody who needs long-term supports. And those are people either through age or disability who need the types of services that will allow them to stay in their own home and as much as possible remain members of their communities.
What region? I said southern New Hampshire. How wide do you go?
Well, for most of our services, we serve the town. There are 11 different towns, primarily the Salem-Derry corridor, and then 9 of the surrounding communities. For some of our newer services, such as Independent Service Coordination that Tina provides, we actually serve all of Rockingham and Hillsborough counties.
Okay.
We serve about 1,000 people in total in those communities.
And it's, I'm sure the term that you serve them varies from individual to individual.
Well, the interesting thing about our services, especially for people with developmental disabilities, it's really a lifetime relationship that we have with families. So oftentimes, we'll begin serving a child at birth or a family, around birth, and we'll oftentimes provide supports to them all the way through the elder years.
Okay, so you actually probably become part of their family.
I think we do.
Very much, yes.
Tina, can you tell us about some of those services?
Well, we, as Dennis said, developmental disabilities, and that kind of breaks down to 3 different, we have early supports and services, that's birth to age 3, and that's the services that they need for the little ones to get established so that they can move forward in their development with whatever supports they need as I don't know what the right word is, as they need. And we do a family support, which is 3 to age 21, that's your school age years, and work within those years with the school districts and help the families through the IEPs, the individual education plans, able to help advocate for the services they need within those years, and then help in their transition years as they turn to adults and what long-term needs they might need as adults. I think obviously, just because you're starting at age 20 through your adulthood, that's kind of where the real long-term relationships with the families begin, because you're either helping them find their own apartment with some supports, maybe within their family's home and they need a little bit of support, or some services through the day, be it employment or volunteering, skill building activities, things like that, or and I don't know, the list could go on and on, Suzanne. And then we do serve folks with acquired or traumatic brain injuries. That is from age like 22 through, again, the spectrum. And those services are kind of unique because obviously it's a traumatic or acquired injury. So, and those kind of can be the same types of services. What kind of residential supports do you need? Are you still able to have employment? Do you need supports in that? And then the medical portion that's involved in brain injuries. And then my program, which is Choices for Independence under the Independent Service Coordination, that kind of encompasses adults. I think primarily seniors fall into that group, but it is a waiver that's open to all adults 18 and over that provides long-term supports for people in their homes to keep them out of nursing homes, as independent in their homes and their community as long as possible. So, and that program is fairly new to our agency, and it's growing, and we're pretty happy with that. And I don't think I missed any.
now I
It
think
sounds like a lot of services. So how do you involve the families? Do you get together or get a team together and decide what the best approach or plan would be for the individual? Does that vary with each program that you offer?
That's very true. That's primarily how we operate.
Seems like the only way.
Very individualized, person-centered approach. And again, if this is the right opportunities and the right services for this individual, we've always been known to try to do what we can to make that happen and wrap those services around that individual so they live a very full, long, happy life.
I think one of the important things to realize is that about 80% of the people we serve live at home with their natural families. So, 20 or 30 years ago, you might have found people living in group homes or, 50 years ago at the Laconia State School. But most of the people we serve are really our neighbors. And so the supports we provide are primarily in families' homes and or whatever it takes to be able to make that child or adult successful in their community.
Right, and it really is starting to talk about the quality of life, I think, when you can keep the individual in that home setting.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
bottom line is they're your neighbors. They're in your community. You see them in your businesses. They're working in their businesses, partaking in the businesses and patrons of them. And they're just...
They're us.
They're in the fabric, so.
Well, how do they qualify? Are there certain guidelines each program must have? But is there an application process? Is there a cost that goes with it?
The criteria are different for every population. We are a private nonprofit corporation, but we contract directly with the State Department of Health and Human Services. So most of the eligibility criteria are determined in state law. And so, for example, someone with a developmental disability has to meet the criteria within the state law for developmental services. The same with somebody who has an acquired brain disorder or somebody under the Choices for Independence program. But primarily it boils down to, and there is an application process. People would do that at our agency. But for the most part, people need to be in need of long-term supports. And then, they have to provide documentation to prove their particular disability. But it's a fairly unbureaucratic and we think family-friendly application process.
So if someone thinks that maybe a family member qualifies, are they able to just call you directly and you can help them evaluate whether they fall into those state guidelines?
Yes. And we usually get referrals from a number of different areas depending on the age of the person. Oftentimes if it's a young, say a premature, a preemie, we'll get a call from the neonatal ICU to come do an evaluation. Oftentimes it's a pediatrician who might notice a delay in development. It could be a school district or it could be the family or really it could be anybody. But that's how it happens. It's a call to our office. We do an intake and then a comprehensive evaluation to determine that eligibility.
Is there one particular phone number you can give our viewers to call?
We have one central phone number and then the referral would go to our intake staff. It's 893-1299.
Okay, great. How long is the process?
It really varies.
It does.
Does it? Okay.
It's a matter of having to collect the medical information. And so part of the intake, they sign releases and then it goes out to their providers. And the providers send the information back to us. And then that packet is able to go to the state for the determination. There's levels.
We do know that when somebody calls us, they're usually pretty desperate to find out get some help or find out some information. So we try to do it within 30 days.
Okay.
But
and
again,
I'm sure they're so anxious to just get the services.
Yep. They just want answers and they want somebody to be able to help them maneuver through the maze.
Well, it also sounds like you work very closely with a lot of other nonprofit organizations, a lot of schools, that you have a network out there.
Yes, we do.
I think we've worked real hard to build that.
We continue to build partnerships throughout the community with local businesses, with the school districts. Right now, we really emphasize on building those partnerships and build them within the organization and the individuals we serve. Have the individuals maybe go out and volunteer. We work with several local businesses here in Derry. This past year, we had an organization, Fire Eye, who adopted a family for us this holiday season and provided a tremendous amount of support to a particular family here in the Derry area. We work closely with Pinkerton, providing information about the organization and working with students and working on internships as they graduate. And we also provide scholarships for the local high school seniors that are going into the health and human service field.
So you have an outreach to these organizations in town where you're actually placing some of the individuals, again, for quality of life for them, where they're not home all the time, but they're able to do internships or to get out in the community and feel like there's some self-worth and all those good things that go with being a real productive member of society.
Right.
I think.
That's exactly right. We like to think that people will live as normal a life as possible, and that includes, just like us, having a job and, graduating from high school, either going on to, post-secondary education or finding a job. But the key is just remaining in their communities so that they can continue to be a valued member.
So how do you fund all these activities and things that you do for these individuals?
Well, our primary funding comes through those contracts comes through a contract with the Department of Health and Human Services. We have about a $22 million budget this year, and about 95% of that comes through the state and federal Medicaid. So, the majority of people we support are eligible for Medicaid by virtue of their disability. But that's often not enough to provide everything that people need. So we've done a significant amount of development and fundraising, which is where Janelle has been.
We do. We have 3 major fundraisers a year. And actually, yesterday, September 11th, was our 25th annual golf tournament in Candia Woods.
Oh, okay.
And that's one of our major fundraisers. In February, we have our Kids Carnival that's usually held at the local Woodbury School in Salem, New Hampshire. And in May, we have our silent auction. All 3 of these fundraising events are open to the public, and we do rely heavily on the support of the community for sponsorships and contributions. They are well attended. We do bring in a significant amount of dollars to help families to offset some of the expenses that they have that Medicaid doesn't cover.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's hard for the families. There's only so much that can be provided, and there's, I'm sure, so many additional needs that people aren't aware of when you have some of those serious.
We actually do take pride in our fundraising because 100% of our fundraising dollars go directly to the individuals that we serve. And we've developed quite a process in-house to make sure that those monies are spent well and are able to get directly to the individuals for whatever their needs are. Because that list that you're talking about, that it's long, that traditional supports. Just there's no mechanism to cover that under the funding.
So it's wonderful to hear 100% of it
Absolutely.
So do you ever need additional volunteers? Do you want to put a call out?
Is that a loaded question?
Absolutely.
I mean, you have the families, but the families, I'm sure it's exhausting having someone who needs your services, whether it's a traumatic brain injury or someone who's been disabled since birth. That wears on a family. So, and I'm sure they give so much and try to get what's best for that individual that to ask them to help with the fundraisers or.
We do. We rely on volunteers.
We recognize that in very much.
So you do have a resource of volunteers and are always looking
for more. Our staff, I think you would find that I think we're a fairly unique staff too. I don't think there's anybody in our agency who isn't stepping up to be part of all those fundraising efforts as well. But beyond that, volunteers from the community are always welcome. And encouraged.
So give me a website if someone wants to, first of all, check out the services that you offer. But if I'm sure There's links on there if they would like to volunteer.
Our website is www.communitycrossroadsnh.org. We also have a Facebook page, so you can find us and like us and become a fan of our agency on Facebook. There are direct links on the website to contact Dennis, Tina, or myself, and many other areas in the agency for employment, for internships, for marketing purposes. So it's a wealth of information on the website.
I have visited it. You have a lot of information on it. It's overwhelming, actually, how many different programs that you have and the services that you provide. It's a lot. So it's a good place to start if anyone thinks they know someone that may qualify. I would say it's your website. And I'm sure if they don't qualify for your services that you know where to direct them.
That's a good
That's very
point,
true.
yes.
I tell people all the time we're a very good resource, not only to them but our community. And if we're not the right people or don't have the right answer, we typically know who to send them to.
Right.
Speaking of volunteers, I think it's important for people to realize because we are a nonprofit corporation, our board of directors is made up of all volunteers.
Okay. That's important.
And they're also made up of representatives from each of the towns that we serve. So we
that's
have,
nice.
I believe, 3 representatives from Derry, and so you're well represented on our board and our Family Support Council, actually.
Do you, are you at liberty to share a short success story?
We have many.
We do have many.
Have
to pick them out.
Yeah.
Dennis?
Probably, there are so many that we probably would, it would take us a while to think of the
narrow
most
down
successful person. But as we mentioned, one of our big focus areas is on employment. And so we have a young man who is, has a developmental disability, but he's just received his 25-year PIN for working at the post office. And he is married, has a child, has his own home. And so his growth over the last 25 plus years has just been unbelievable. And you know, we have several people who, you know, we could point to who've just taken the little bit of supports that we've provided and used it as a springboard to be, you know, true members of their community and successful.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a nice way to end today. If there's nothing else that you think we need to cover.
I think we did a pretty good job.
No, I think that's
please.
we just appreciate the opportunity, so thank you.
Well, thank you for coming in. I want to thank you for watching our show today. I hope you've learned a lot about Community Crossroads. Once again, my name is Suzanne Bernier Robinson. Thank you for watching Bettering Our Community.